Maybe to start with, gents, if I just ask the two of you just to explain a little bit about your particular area of expertise, what you do, who you are.
Okay, my name's Mark Thompson, Managing Director of ASON Group, based in Telford. We are a battery company, and we have been for quite a few years, but we got into energy storage around about 2012 when they invented a little solar generator for Africa. So that was inverter, battery, solar. So that's really what took us on this journey on actually, that thing pops up, as Kevin's alluded, 5% on rooftops. We could power the whole country, and it's taken a war and all this other stuff to actually get people switched on, which, we have been badgering for some time. But I think energy storage is that little bit that where solar and battery and wind, that, you don't know when it's going to blow and you don't know when it's going to be sunny. But when it does, you want to capture everything. And if you look at some of the places, they're not open at weekends. So all that energy, where's that going? So again, battery storage is really what we're up to.
And Tim?
All right. Is this on?
It certainly is.
Doesn't sound on. Right. My name's Tim Yare. I work for the Midlands Net Zero Hub, but my role here is to support the Marches LEP in delivering the energy strategy. Strategy was written a few years ago now, back in 2018, and it's all about trying to overcome what the main issues are in terms of energy in the Marches region. It's primarily about capacity. But it's also about renewable energy, and it's also about things like fuel poverty. Because energy is a big part of all of our lives, and it's important that we take everything along in the whole journey. We don't just concentrate on one particular element. So my role is to support the local authorities, the businesses, the LEP, whoever else in delivering energy projects.
And Mark, I know you asked a question of Kevin there around the installation, the practical side of it. How big a part is the skills issue at the moment and having the infrastructure to keep up with what we need to do?
Absolutely. I think that's why one of the questions, I think, as Shropshire Council, Telford Council and the Marches, as a general, we know that we've got a skill shortage for this net zero. As I say, it has been speeded up with Ukraine. And now I think, you're lucky to get somebody to come round and quote you in 4 months, let alone put an installation just to come round to your building. Oh, we'll come and see you in 4 months' time. I think it's 9 months on some residential projects. So you can imagine the existing companies that are out there, they're obviously overworked. But also that increases prices. Why would you take a job at 2,000 when you can get paid for 4,000? So, we need those skills and jobs and colleges to actually upskill. So if you've seen a lot of plumbing now turning on to getting involved with energy storage and solar, because, hopefully, we get rid of those gas boilers in time. But yeah, I think there's a lot of upskilling's got to be done, but also I think, we're having to really lead the colleges that next generation of kids coming through and youngsters will be around the green skills agenda, because that's what we need.
Well, I know you've got a big project particularly going on in Telford at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. I think, we knocked on Telford College 3 years ago. We said, look, you need to put energy storage in. Why do I want to put energy storage? What are we going to get out of this? I said, well, this is coming down the road, guys. We don't have enough people trained putting in energy storage into homes and commercial properties. You're dealing with live fuel here. This is not, no respect, solar is pretty standard on the roof. You need to be very competent and very clever. But when you're dealing with electricity and wires and cable and inverters, putting it all together, I see it as a BT engineer's job. That kind of role. It's not just a twin and earth, put a couple of sockets in. You're dealing with live, high voltage, low voltage battery systems that actually needs a bit of care. And to do that, you then need to bring the skills in. So I actually did help them write the standard for MCS, because being a battery geek, I could see lots of bad installs going along, and I thought this is not right for the industry, and I didn't want to see a Grenfell start to evolve by just getting what I call cowboys into the market and absolutely ruin it before you've even started it.
So if you're a battery geek, then Tim, are you a net zero geek? What do we call you? I'm just wondering. Obviously, a lot of plans, strategies for local authorities, for lots of other organisations, would have been written 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. How relevant are they now to what's going on?
Good question. I think they are still relevant. A lot of the questions that are posed in the 2018 Marches Energy Strategy are still right. What they need to do is go further. When the Marches Energy Strategy was written, there was no mention of net zero. Now you can't see a news item about energy without the words net zero being mentioned now. So there is a need to up the ambition of the energy strategy, so that's something the LEP are quite keen to see happen. So that is something we're looking to do over the next year or so, to actually make sure that we are in line with the government's net zero targets as well, and actually the more importantly perhaps in this area, the local authorities' net zero targets, which are even more ambitious than the government's. So all the 3 local authorities within the Marches have got a net zero target of 2030. That's very, very ambitious, and it's going to be quite tricky to meet that, but it's good to have that ambition, and that's what the LEP are quite keen to work with the local authorities to make sure that we get to that. We're going to have to tackle a lot of things within that, so it's not all about renewable energy generation. It's also about energy efficiency, which I know we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But it's also the other things that go on around the edges of these things. There's a lot about fuel poverty within our energy strategy, which is a key to this as well. If we don't take people along with us and make sure that they're not being adversely impacted by all the changes that are going on in the energy market, then we're not going to make it. So we need to bring everybody along with us. It's not just, as you say, Mark, about putting solar panels on roofs or even batteries everywhere. We need to bring people along with us, and there's an education piece that needs to go along with that.
And Kevin mentioned obviously some of the subsidised help that's available, and from the solar point of view, what else, I mean, what businesses I guess are going to really want to know this morning is what other help is there for me at the moment to find the capital to get me started? Yeah, it's a very good question. It's one that the LEP have been looking to see what we can do to help support businesses. I mean, on the screen you shall see there is the Marches Energy Grant, which has been noted. That is one of the things which is taking over from previous support mechanisms. So we've had, because of European funding, some very, very good examples of what can be done within our region. So we've had the Marches Renewable Energy Grant, which has really done very, very well in putting solar PV on a lot of roofs and doing things like heat pumps. We've also had and just coming to the end now, of the Business Energy Efficiency Programme, or BEEP, and that's been really, really useful to a large number of businesses across the Marches in actually delivering improvements, and again, that's going to be talked about a little bit later in terms of all the vast array of different things that you could do rather than just thinking about energy generation. We are looking to see what we can do to support businesses going forward, and that's something that LEP is really keen to see delivered. We're working with the partner local authorities to make that happen, and we'll be hearing more about that in the near future. And much as the cost of living situation at the moment is causing real financial heartache for a lot of people, I mean, Kevin, from your point of view, do you think actually also it's heightened the urgency among a lot of people to actually put this to the top of their agenda as well?
It certainly has, yeah. Before I answer that, I just want to say there's also Call Shropshire and Telford, which is a free online tool.
We'll be hearing all about that later on.
So. Yes. But yeah, I mean, it certainly has, you know, I go to business events like this, I have a stand and I'm talking from start to finish and taking cards and getting emails with people desperate to reduce their energy bills because, you know, they're absolutely sky high. And I think people are terrified of what they're going to be in the future when their contract runs out or when the cap finishes. They really don't know what they're going to be paying, and they want a way of kind of equalising that a bit and saying, well, if we can get solar on the roof any way we can, then yeah, why not? In a way that they never were before. I don't know whether it was because electricity was so relatively cheap, although it always seemed quite expensive to me. But there really is almost a clamour for solar power on rooftops, particularly for businesses.
One of the other tools which is coming along, which might be of interest to people, is something that we're working with the Centre for Sustainable Energy on, which is actually a solar tool to actually see your own rooftop and actually see how much solar PV you can actually put on that rooftop. It's going to be a free-to-use platform. It doesn't it uses all sorts of really technical stuff about LiDAR data and lasers and things to actually calculate what the capacity of any rooftop would be. What it doesn't do is say how strong your roof is. So it's only a first step and it gives you a rough idea. But it'll be an interesting tool to have a look at your own individual buildings to see what the capacity is. And that will then hopefully be able to push people in the direction of the big solar co-op to say, we've got this roof, we reckon it can hold 20 megawatts or whatever, how big your roof is, and then take it to the next step and actually call someone like Kevin or Mark to work out what you can actually do in that area.
And Mark, I know I've seen you quoted as saying you think 2023 is the year of the battery, when it's really coming into its own then.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things last week, we had a little Lunchbox sandwich wagon right next door to us, and we lent to one of our little solar generators, and actually Telford Council have banned all new catering to actually have diesel generators. So they go to see Munchbox to see this 2 kilowatt portable thing that she takes home. So she charges it for £2 for the whole week, and she was spending £25 a week on petrol. And we only found out on Friday that Telford Council, that if anyone new coming in for catering, well, can't have a diesel generator. So, you know, things are changing. So the year of the battery, and, you know, we talk about batteries, and you think about Britishvolt up in Northumberland. You know, they were all about automotive batteries. If you read the press, it's all about energy storage batteries. So you can see where the market's going. It's needed because we do need solar. But as I say, it's weekends and various tariffs you can use with batteries. We've got one client that doesn't have solar, and he's got it for 5 petrol stations. So he's just using a daytime and a nighttime tariff. Now, obviously, we're pushing him to get solar because it'd be silly not to, free of charge once you've got your panels. But he's just using battery technology on a nighttime and a daytime tariff. And the difference is paying his capex in that version. So, you know, things are changing, and I think it is the year of the battery. We're seeing electrification. We talk about buses, keeping the lights on. You know, when we talk about solar, fantastic. It's giving electricity. We're all going EV cars. You're going to have electric buses running around. You're going to have trucks. We're going to need a lot of power to charge these vehicles that are running around the UK. So I absolutely agree with Kevin. Commercial rooftops should be, absolutely, because the staff that are going to be turning up to your workplace are going to be driving electric cars. And they're all going to be wanting to be charged, and they're all buses, taxis. I could go on. Year of the battery.
Let me throw this question out then to the three of you, really. Have we got to a point now where actually adopting some of these renewable energy and storage policies is going to be crucial for actually gaining business? Do you find potential customers going to want to know what your credentials are as an employer? Are you adopting this? Are you what's your net zero target?
Yeah.
To choose whether to work with you or not.
Well, you're seeing tenders now. You know, tenders are going out to big companies. I mean, the big company we got here, Arco. You know, big tenders coming out. What are you doing for your net zero policies? That if you don't hit some of these real benchmarks, you can't even win the tenders. So there really is a push from winning government tenders of reducing. I think HS2 contracts is huge. You know, they've got to cut by 30% on their net zero. So again, diesel generators and whatever. But there's a real push just for winning your own business. But yeah, I think if you want to attract your newcomers coming through, you know, you've got to be looking as a green company, because the kids that are now coming out of school, and, you know, they're on a mindset that we're killing this planet, and they will want to work for companies that have a real good agenda for their own business, but also for what they believe in. So I think it's a real big key message for businesses to want to, should be green anyway, but I think if you're going to entice, and it's not easy, we're talking about getting employment, we all say, where do we find them? You know, it really is difficult out there. So it's another little tick in the box that if your company's looked as a green company and you're going down the right path, actually attracting the right people will also be important.
Yeah. Tim, you were nodding at that one. So.
Yeah, I mean, as Mark says, it's not necessarily all plain sailing either. No. There are lots of barriers in the way to doing this. It would be great if everybody here went away and then immediately started installing batteries, installing PV. But you will come across other barriers as well. There will be barriers from which are put up from the DNOs, the distributed network operators. So these are the people who allow people to connect new businesses or new solar PV or new batteries into their electricity system. In our area, we've got two. We've got what used to be Western Power Distribution, they're now National Grid Electricity Distribution, and Scottish Power. So we've got two in our region, both of which say that their systems are heavily constrained. So we can't just put in lots of new solar PV farms and things like that without spending a huge amount of money upgrading the wires, the networks, if you like. What we're trying to do, again, with the Marches LEP is to work with those organisations to see, rather than just getting a straightforward no, which has been the typical answer we've had over the last decade or so, is to try and move that conversation on to say no, but we could do it in a different way. So we're looking to see if we can work with them to give them some more data to actually use their networks more efficiently. Because they don't really know at the moment what goes on all the time at low voltage levels. And we could make a little bit of difference working with battery storage at that low voltage level. So we are working with the DNOs to see what we can do to get better data and actually overcome some of the big constraint problems, which I know that a lot of people in the room today will have come across that no answer from WP, from NGED, and actually get to that next stage of the conversation. Because if we can get there, then we can come up with innovative solutions. There are lots of innovative solutions. Mark's at the forefront of some of those ideas, and if we can just get those conversations going, I think we could get a lot more actually done.
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a business owner, quite a big business, last week, and they were saying that they've got the opportunity to tender for a very big NHS contract, and they got the tender criteria coming through, and it's just itemised all the things that they've got to demonstrate in terms of their green credentials. And if you look at their website, they look really good. They've got ISO, they've got sustainability policy, they've got rewilding, they've got solar panels on the roof, and this, that, and the other. But she was almost panic-stricken because she thought, yeah, I can see all this stuff, but I don't know how to put it in a tender in a convincing way. And so I think businesses really are focused on demonstrating their sustainability and their carbon savings to win further business. I mean, this contract would be fantastic for them, but at the moment she's thinking, well, we're not going to get it because we can't demonstrate what we need to demonstrate. What I said was, well, because I've been on a few calls with the Home Office when they've been saying about if you want a contract for win a contract for the Home Office, just say what you're doing and demonstrate the difference you've made. You don't have to be all bells and whistles. You just have to demonstrate that you've got a policy and you know where you are. You know what your emissions are. You know what you want your emissions to be. You know how much you've reduced them by. And if you don't know what they are, just say that. But just be honest. Hopefully she'll win this contract. But that's a new thing, suddenly saying, oh, you've got to demonstrate all your sustainability credentials up front. That's a big ask for a lot of businesses, which is why Cool Shropshire is a good starting point, because it really gives you a grounding in what you need to do and what you need to know and where to go to learn more.
We'll pick up on that a little bit shortly on. But anybody got any questions at this point? If you have, let us know, and I'll bring the microphone over to you. I'll steal it from one of our panellists. We have got one question. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me...
Thanks, Carl. It's not so much a question as just following up on what you were saying about tenders, etc., and everybody wanting to have information. It's actually no good just saying, oh, we're a green company. And I think there's an awful lot about greenwash around, but the Competition and Markets Authority brought out a green guide code that say you have to evidence what you're doing. So you need to be able to be honest and truthful, and a number of very large companies have been taken to task over egging just how green they are. Innocent Drinks, for example. You know, now if innocent drinks can be taken to court and told you need to be careful about this, so it's not good enough anymore simply to say we've got ambition to be green. You need to understand what's behind it, and that's a real power, I think, to the whole agenda, is that you need to evidence action, and I'm really keen on that. So what you're saying about get to understand what your energy is, how you can do it, that's the way forward. I think it needs to be evidenced.
Excellent, thank you for that. Anybody else? There's another question. There you go, pass it across.
Can I just carry on from that argument? We've heard a lot about new battery technology. And so is this new battery technology able or required to demonstrate the embedded carbon that there is in the battery production?
Yeah, I mean, good question. Everyone talks about lithium and cobalt and what are we going to do with it. We're actually got a lovely story with JLR breaking that we use all their second life EV batteries and we put them into portable energy storage units. So they have a second life. So they come out of the car, they've still got another 7 or 8 years left, not to drive a car 400 miles, but actually to power a munch box for the next 7 or 8 years from a second life point of view. After the second life, well, what are we going to do with the batteries? Well, we need recycling plants. So the recycling plants will take 80% of that material back into new cells. So when the demand starts to increase, and this is why it's important the UK has our own gigafactories, because it's that supply chain, it's recycling plants, it's second life products, and it can all be charged by solar. Hydrogen can't. So it's a real win-win from where are we digging up our lithium? Well, it's actually, a lot of it's coming from Australia. So it's not Africa, it's not the Congo. So our supply chain is starting to develop in the UK, but our government has got to pull the finger out and start to support some of these gigafactories that we urgently need. And when we talk about, putting a gigafactory in Shropshire, where would that energy come from? So it needs wind, it needs power, hence why Britishvolt is where it is, because it's by the sea, it's next to a wind farm, and there's a lovely cable from Norway that can go straight into the factory to feed it. So this is why you see gigafactories in real key areas. But coming back to your question with lithium, it is all about sustainability, second life, and recycling. 80% of that materials is going back into the battery. But with that, innovation does come. So we've just placed our first order for sodium-ion cells made of salt. So battery companies won't just stop with lithium. There are other great technologies coming around. So sodium-ion, invented in the UK with Theridion. They got bought out about 6 months ago, 125 million from an Indian company. But there's a place called Ampty Power up in Scotland, and we've just had our delivery of first ever sodium-ion cells made in the UK, which is made of salt. So there are other technologies down the line, not just lithium. But lithium is the cost-effective product where we are today, and if people want it cheaper, that's where we are at the moment. But there are other battery technologies coming.
Thanks for that. Amazing how quickly everything's moving, isn't it? We've got time for one more question for this panel, if anybody's got anything they want to say. Otherwise, we'll say, I think we have. Okay, well, can I say a big thank you to Mark, to Kevin, to Tim. Thank you very much, folks.